Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. The boys are back in town.
Sorry, that's all I had.
Very nice.
That's all I had.
Full Goon Squad in the house. Speaking of Goon Squad, turns out,
Fun fact,
YouTube does not show us who subscribes to our channel, just the amount of subscribers, new ones, you know, all that sort of data. So, the Goon Squad jersey here, reversible, the year of the GOAT. Okay, I'm showing the camera if you're not on YouTube. You're going to have to be on YouTube, though, if you want to win this bad boy. The only Goon Squad jersey being sent out to a non-Goon Squad member. You need to comment on this video on YouTube. We would love for you to also subscribe.
that'd be dope.
Yeah, like maybe if the subscriber number goes down, we'll burn it on the next episode live. We'll light it on fire. Yeah. So comment on this episode, whatever you want, and we'll be able to basically do a number generator of the numbered comment.
What should they comment?
I don't know.
What do you think, Sherb?
I don't know. You got a smile on your face. Like you had an idea
face,
already.
eggplant emoji. Like
Yeah. Yeah, comment your best emoji. Like a combination of emojis.
Your
not like
best
a single.
emoji?
Why don't we
Like
make
a-
people
like a
convince us
single.
why they deserve the jersey?
Oh God.
Well, when someone writes a story, it's like
Wait,
15
wanna
pages
write a
long.
book report.
Ooh, what if
Write
it
us a
was
book
like
report.
what if it was like deep cuts of the podcast to prove that you are. So put in an anecdote from a previous podcast that like had to be in the weeds somewhere, right? Like if you just say crumble cookie, no go.
Too superficial.
Give us something weird. Could be a throwback. Who knows? How about that? Prove you're a listener.
Either prove you're a listener or put your favorite emojis. We don't want to exclude too many people.
I don't want to exclude as many
It'd be
people
funny
as
to get a
possible.
story we all don't remember. We're like,
Yeah.
that might have happened. I
That
don't
didn't-
remember.
that didn't
I
happen.
don't remember.
Ooh, make up a story that happened on the podcast.
I'll believe that
Oh,
happened.
I'm into that too.
Yeah.
The weirdest episode idea you can come up with. Okay, so comment, and we'll pick the winner next week. So we've been
It's been a hiatus.
we've been gone.
long
Was it 2 or
hiatus.
3 weeks with no episode? So we'll start with Sherb. Potentially the most unique because you didn't go to any of the semifinals.
First time since 2011 that I didn't go to a semifinal / regional. So that was
And you
a
had
little weird.
athletes at all three or two of the three?
I had, let's see.
In terms of weekends. I know
Weekends-
that you had multiple people.
Just weekends two. That was the because all of them competed on the same weekend. The team and then both my individuals, one in Brazil and one in
Right.
Australia. So they all competed on the same weekend. So I had a weekend of like, all right, what time is it in Sao Paulo, Brazil? What time is it in Brisbane, Australia? What time is it in California? So like just figuring that out. And like
Did you rediscover that Brazil is east of us?
They're
And
1 hour ahead.
Did it fuck your brain up? That I remember when the team went down there that time, and I looked at a map and I was like, okay, South America is
the West. It's somewhere
South America
west.
is under California. No, it's not. It's way out into the fucking Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, I learned quite a bit, and thankfully Julia helped me with that. She's like, just so you know, this is 1 hour ahead. I'm like, if you hadn't said that, I would have no idea that that's the case.
Fuck.
It blew my
That's-
mind.
dude, that fucked me up.
It's not the same boat. I'm like, yeah, it's under California.
Like, I kind of like
to the left.
geography. Turns out I don't know
anything about
shit.
it. Damn globe confusing me.
So all text, all live stream.
All text, all live stream, and unfortunately, with I think the Down Under. Torian Pro, I call it Down Under because they have another competition called the Down Under Championships. But Torian Pro did a really nice
Thanks for
job
clarifying.
of like making sure like I thought of all of the semifinals that I had to watch because unfortunately watching is not the best way to digest them in my opinion. I prefer to be there.
Oh, we'll
They
get
did
into that.
They did a really good job of not only showing all the athletes, which is a problem I think with most of the live streams, but they had like interesting stories. So like what was really cool about kicking off event one is they had a backstory on George that was like 5 to 7 minutes long. They're talking about like what he does and like how he's a unique competitor. I was like, man, if only every single semifinal did some level of research to this extent, people would get to know the athletes a lot better and there'd be more incentive to like learn about new athletes. It just still feels like all the old guard from 2012 are the only people anyone knows about and like the new and up and comers until they do something worth noting, like, qualifying for the games. No one knows what the fuck they are, or what they do. So that was a very fun semifinal to watch.
That's interesting.
But the Copa-Star, they did a pretty good job showing everyone too, but it was in Portuguese. So I had no idea what was being said.
Yeah.
So I got to see glimpses of Julia competing throughout the weekend. And there's a couple times where she was front running on the heat. So that was fun to watch, but it was definitely unique. And then obviously getting to watch the team dominate out there was very cool. And because they did really well, they were front and center for a lot of the weekend, which was nice to have, because when we were watching Caroline week 1, it was and until day 2, they're like, do they even exist? Are we only caring about the other teams? What's happening here? So it was nice to be able to see all 3 of them, mostly because the other live streams did a good job, and because Franco Misfits did competed really well, and obviously won the event. So it was weird watching it from a screen all weekend as opposed to being in person.
You went to one semifinal.
Yep.
You were out at the West.
Yep.
Is that normal for you? I'm trying to think back. Normally you go to multiple regional
I think
semifinal.
it really depends on the need with only with fewer athletes compared to you two. It's kind of based on the needs of the coaching of coaching. So it was just the one, and that's trying to think back. Been to an event for the most part over the last 5 years, but maybe I don't recall. It
Were you
depends
at both last year? Weren't you with us at?
You were in
Montreal, weren't you?
We were in Montreal.
So you were in Montreal and
Tennessee.
Yes, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Yep. So I think the in person. I agree. I really wish I would really like to pick someone's brain on the broadcasting front about as far as why certain events are chosen to be live streamed versus not, and overall, I feel like there was a period in I don't know, maybe 5-7 years ago when broadcasting was, I don't know if it was better, but it was easier to follow. I think it's so fucking hard to follow. I think that's the biggest. I think CrossFit's biggest.
I have an
problem,
entire page of notes about how hard it is to follow.
Yeah, CrossFit's biggest problem is that these events are very hard to follow. I'm sure it has a lot to do with the fact that it's a lot of heats, a lot of athletes doing the same thing, just kind of repeated throughout the day. But I tend to agree with Sherb. There is the hyper, probably 75% of the time the cameras are fixated on
1 or
2% of the actual competitive field. So and there's obviously logistical limitations to that, but there is definitely the vibe of we still haven't crossed the threshold fully of we're in a new generation of CrossFitters. There's still a heavy focus on the old guard, the athletes who are coming to maybe
even the commentators. I think they think that people are there for the big name commentators.
And a lot of the commentary is sort of based on the idea that people know who these people are, and it's I have no fucking idea who 95% of these competitors are, and for me as a coach, it's only slightly bigger, and only because you're in the back area with so many of these people for multiple years on end. So I think the events were cool. I thought the event was pretty well run. It was fairly smooth, barring your kind of standard general complaints about judging and about the things that we think.
You guys were in a weird one. You guys were packed into a little spot.
Yeah, it was a single. From what I heard, the place in Orlando is a fucking gigantic.
Those convention centers.
Is that going down in Atlanta?
Crazy,
just massive. And this thing was very small. It was very. It was cool. It was tight, and it was cool. I said to Kelly, I was like, this is going to be kind of cool. You're going to have, their fans.
I got a vibe from the live stream that people were really into it.
It was very close. People were into it. I thought it was pretty loud, but it was also the vendor village was detached. So there were basically 3 buildings. It was the competition venue where the competition floor and the community semifinal workout space, where they did workouts or did little mini seminars and whatnot. That was all in one building. Then the vendor village was in a different building, which by all accounts looked to be very like mildly attended as far as people coming and going, and just like fairly small number. And then the third building was the athlete warm up area, and they basically had to every event they walked underneath, like kind of just tunneled to the venue, finished the event, and then could either go through the tunnel back or
It's like an Andy Dufresne with a spoon. Like
I don't know who that is, but it sounds like
Raquel Welch.
he knows.
Yeah, that
You've
was
seen
the
Shawshank.
That's got to be a movie you've seen. You have to have seen that
seen
movie.
it.
Yeah, you got to put that on the list. That's a great movie. That's literally. You've heard the term Shawshanked? Have you heard that before? It's like when a certain movie's on TV, you can't stop but watch it. That's like where that saying
Can't
comes
stop
from.
but watch it.
Can't
Watch but stop it.
I don't know what the
Can't
fuck I'm trying to
stop
say. You basically
not-
have to sit there and watch the goddamn movie because it's on. That's one of those movies. That's where that came from. That like phrase.
Yeah.
It's like just a really good movie. So if it's on, you're like, well, I've seen this 85 times. I might as well sit here again and watch it for the 86th time.
Yeah, it's like Sunday at like 4:27 p.m. and you're like, what just happened? Because there's 9 hours of commercials to get through Shawshank on TBS.
4 hours to watch a 90-minute movie. Perfect.
Just resting my eyes. Shut up.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
could definitely do that now.
Carry on.
No, I think that was
That was
the
Was there
Aside from
there
me.
food at the vendor village? This vendor village. I'm just curious because like who the fuck would go over there when they could walk out and go anywhere else?
there was one like food like stand outside in between.
Hot dogs and Coke.
It was like Asian street food sort of thing.
That's not bad.
I think it existed whether the competition was there or not. So it
Sure.
wasn't exactly. It
existed.
wasn't like catered towards CrossFitter. It looked like one of the food stands at the games.
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing.
Yep.
So
Food shanty.
Week one for me was
Streaming at the TV. Where's Caroline's team?
yeah, pretty frustrating on that front. I just don't understand. Like if CrossFit really wanted to highlight that team, they should have sent a cameraman to their gym like they used to before. Like
Yeah, the Road to the Game stuff was just
Like-
super cool.
Taylor and Andrea, previous games champs, like basically wherever they go,
They win.
you know, that they do really well. Obviously Tola is Tola, like huge draw there. And then Paulson's been doing what he's been doing for a long time. I personally wanted to see how that team was going to do, but they like the lifting event, for an example, the live stream, there were two cameras and they did picture in picture, and it was of the men and the women, even though 50% of the time one of them wasn't doing anything. So they weren't showing anyone else.
Yeah.
And you would think at surface level, I'm just complaining, I want to see my athlete. Because sometimes that is the case and it is frustrating. And that's not what I'm saying at all. Like,
well, there was at least one point where we were watching Tola and Tim like just talking. It was like after an event.
That's what I just said.
That was
That's the
the
one,
one.
yeah, same
Yeah, it was
part.
like
Yeah.
we finished an event. There's
Yeah.
like athletes still competing, and
Yep.
it's like we're watching. Can't even hear a conversation. You're just watching it occur.
and I'm like, I feel like I'm in a weird headspace right now because I'm really annoyed by like the only way for people to make content right now is for everybody to say the programming's terrible and HQ doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. And like everything is super negative, right?
Yeah, all the time.
But also I'm on the side of a lot of things went wrong at semifinals, and I'm obsessed with this sport and what we do. And it's like, how do we make this better? Someone tunes into this and they're like, I'm literally just watching the same person exercise. I don't, that doesn't make any sense. That's not how a sport is visually shown. Like the two examples that I thought of how they could potentially make this better made me think of Formula One. Like this season, there's a Red Bull car that's 90 miles in front of everyone else, and they don't get shown the whole time. They get checked in on every once in a while. They got to say something funny, basically.
Yeah.
Like Max has to be like, "Oh, there's a booger on my face," and everyone's like, "Hee hee," and then they go back to showing people actually fucking
I'm gonna
race.
start watching
Yeah.
Formula One.
And then the Netflix show, the reason why people give a shit about it is because they go in and they tell you about individuals. So when they do show the race and they are showing 9th and 10th
can
battling,
make a connection.
You know that Yuki's about to say, "Why you make me fucking crash," and like there's just all of these
Get more invested
elements.
with it.
Exactly. We don't get any of that. And like I don't know that the broadcasting's any better or worse, but there used to be the type of thing that you're talking about with George. Like this person does this. And like, I remember HQ knew all about Max and like him like climbing trees and doing that whole thing. And they like had the camera on him in the back because it was a true like affiliate story. Like this disconnect from them to whoever they hire, it's an absolute fucking mess. Like it really is. We're not going to be able to show other people how fucking cool this sport is if they continue to do what they're doing. It made no sense. There were some events where they would pan back and they would, maybe like the one where you're finishing with the 800, they'd, sort of go back and forth. But there were so many events that were like that. And it's just like, how am I watching? Like, it was just as frustrating trying to figure out how Paige was doing. This is someone who's gone to the CrossFit Games so many times. This is someone who they did the live stream of Linda and didn't notice that she was one of the top people in the entire event, never said a word about her finishing. They're like, oh, so-and-so just finished in 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th and 7th. Paige has been sitting on the ground for 3 minutes. They don't say a fucking word about it. It's just like, what are we doing? What the fuck is this?
Yeah, I imagine, like, let's say you're a competitor and you have family members that, know a little bit about what you do and want to know more about it. And maybe you have the opportunity to expand how many people in your circle appreciate and love CrossFit. You tell them to go watch the live stream. You don't get mentioned once. You don't get seen once. And someone would be like, why the fuck would I go to the event if it's anything like this live stream? And that's the thing that's a bummer, because when you go to an event, you get by the lane, you watch your athlete, you're able to hang out with them, you see them here and there, and you can see how things unfold and you get to see the full picture. So like what you're describing would be great if they had a full floor view and then maybe picture in picture in the bottom corner, they're highlighting certain parts of athletes doing certain things. Like, look at the technique on this overhead squat down here in the corner, or look at this person fail their rope climb 2 feet from being back at the bottom of that legless rope climb. Like that type of stuff would make it more engaging, but they have to get at least a better accountability for seeing more of the floor and more of the athletes so that more people can essentially follow the flow of the workout. That's another thing that's really lost. Like they assume that everyone knows exactly what's going on at all times. And I think that's one of the huge problems there. In addition to zooming in on one athlete the whole time, is they so it's like a foregone conclusion that everyone knows what we're doing here. It's like, what if you stumbled on this and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. People are like really fit and I'd like to do this. But then you watch for a few minutes and it's just like those guys chatting and touching their belt.
I think one thing I've noticed, I've gotten into golf. Of all things, a lot.
Oh my god!
Recently,
are you? If you're listening to country music too,
I'm not okay. Yet. No,
Jesus.
I don't think.
Yet.
I don't. No, I
saw his vest.
Man, that would be. That'll be a cold day in hell.
Khakis.
I'll allow one of each. But if you love country and golf, we're probably not pals.
Golf, Formula One, just name your major sport. I think, and I'm kind of thinking about golf and Formula One because those are kind of individual sports, people competing either against the leaderboard or against each other.
Yeah.
And there's always so much, and I previously watched golf, and I was like, this is the most boring sport in the world. Like,
you need to invest in the people, right?
Well, you need to invest in the people, but you also they do a great there's almost no downtime. Like there's an element of unless you've played the game or there is a level of appreciation you have to have for what the athletes are doing, and I think that's one reason that I like it because I've started doing it, and it's the hardest fucking game on the planet. And
dude, you're a mile away and there's a tiny hole and a tiny ball. It makes no sense.
For all the reasons, but there's in broadcasts, there's almost no downtime. It's like we're always toggling between who's about to hit next, who's teeing off, who's on the green, who's in a fucking bunker in Narnia. There's a leaderboard there, and it's constantly being updated. You have this giant heads up display. It's the same thing with Formula One, right? It's like so and so is back X number of seconds. We're moving up. So and so has dropped 5 places. Since the lights out, whatever it is. There's an element of being able to follow what's happening and announcers either explaining it or for me it's
Do they
not
still just whisper?
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Right. Jim Nance. He's putting. Jim, I don't think they can hear you.
Formula One, the opposite. Is. But I just think that there's a lot missing, and we used to have the leaderboard at least where it was so and so is X number of reps behind, and it was well, at least if they're not staring at the athlete I want, I can at least see where they're at on the leaderboard. But unless you're able to zoom in on the fucking placards on the ground, that's 200, 400, 600, 800 meters. It's I have no idea who's competing. I have no idea where anybody is in the flow of the workout. I have no idea how they're doing compared to the rest of the field. Like, do we have like one of those
but
yellow,
you know what their face looks like.
do you have one of those yellow lines that's like, here's the leader, and it's like an athlete like is trying to be ahead of that? Like, I don't know. It's just
My mind right now is stuck just imagining golf being announced like March Madness. That's what I want right now. I want someone to do an alternative golf broadcast that's done like March Madness.
No,
like
we need that NBA Finals team. Have you seen the memes where it's like the two most ridiculous comments ever, and then it's like Jokic for 3. like this is no, like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? Like, one time I was in Albuquerque and I stepped on a needle and fell off a cliff. Nice pass.
That's what we need.
Yeah. The excuse that I think I can make is listening to them on other platforms talk about how small that team is.
Yeah.
I don't think what we are asking for is possible, but the amount of fans that they have and the scope of the competition, it makes no sense to be in an arena of that size and have this many people tuning in and this many people signing up for the Open and all this stuff happening. And it's just like, we're not really going to show you. Hopefully you show up and just know what's going on. It's really frustrating for like, we're trying to advance this thing. Like a production company that knew what they were doing could come in and quadruple the size of CrossFit in like the snap of a finger. It would not be that challenging for them to do. The sport would get fucking massive. The people are interesting. The stuff that they do is incredible. Go behind the scenes, go into the gyms, show what these people are doing, like at the highest levels. Everyone will have their mind blown. It's like everyone knows roughly like, okay, I've seen someone in the gym like, holy shit, I know this person that benches 225 and runs a 6-minute mile. And it's like, well, this person, clean and jerks, twice as much as that or whatever. And like runs a 4-minute mile. Like, I just think the general public could be shown what the athletes are up to like bring them in to that space.
Yeah, I think of the commercials they air in between events. That's one of the things you get about the live stream is you get like the cutaway to like the CrossFit produced commercials. And I always think those are some of the most incredible pieces of media that they do, but they only do them for like short spurts around events. Like the CrossFit games, they'll have the same 4 stories roll through over and over again, or the games, they'll have the same 4 or 5 human interest stories about CrossFit. And they come from the competitive aspect all the way down to like the community element of CrossFit. If that type of stuff was more involved, I think it could show people a better idea of like what CrossFit is. Because I
just don't think they're going to pull people in with that. I think they're going to pull people in with the behind the scenes of the high level athletes, and then, okay, I've got you. Now I'm going to show you that we can do this
I think
elsewhere.
It's almost like CrossFit's confused about what it wants as far as like,
and that's been the case for a few years now.
It's the do we want to, because like, yeah, that all of that sounds really entertaining, but it's like, but does CrossFit care? Not that they don't care, but it's like the message from CrossFit is like, we want Bob Susie to go into their local affiliate. We're not as concerned. We're not worried about trying to get people to become games athletes. We're not worried necessarily as much about,
but does the brand die if there isn't this thing?
But yeah, sure. It's like, yeah, what is, who's holding who up, so to speak. And it seems like maybe we're like the media, the video that was shot about Kelly, and CrossFit Up was great, and she got a ton, like a lot of people came up to her and talked about how great it was, and like they love the video, and it's all that, and all that sort of stuff is terrific. But yeah, it seems like CrossFit is still confused,
and that's the right direction. That's the right direction, because that's a Venn diagram of the two competing ideas that we're talking about. Maybe they're not competing. There's crossover. We can show this, and I know that I saw last night that they did an article in a similar vein about Paige, where it's like, she's a coach. Mm-hmm. Like she said when she was a kid, she wanted to be a teacher, and now she's, passing along what she does, to other people. There is crossover there. So that was week 1. I was very sleep deprived, and I was very sleep deprived, but I had my spreadsheet ready for the final. I have been on too many competition floors, on the other side of the barrier with, we're going to win by a point, we're going to lose by a point, this person jumped from 10th to whatever. So after event 6, I had every single, I think it was the top 6 was solidified. It was like very, like out of reach. And then 7 through 11. 7 through 11 was really up for grabs. So I went 7 through I went 7 through like 20 on my leaderboard, and I had the correct scoring table. Rest in peace, Gabe. We'll get there. Next
Gabe,
to it.
where's yours? I want to see on the screen.
And basically I watched and put in my assumed what I thought their time was. I didn't have the like to the 10th of a second or anything like that. But again, because of the live stream, they weren't showing or saying a lot of the scores. So I had a lot of gaps.
Yeah.
So I had shown Jen and Caroline like, hey, I'm doing this. So I'm going to try to have an answer for you as soon as possible. And they're immediately texting me like ... question mark, like, what the fuck, spreadsheet boy, like, let's go.
Boy,
And
come on, boy.
This is to just figure out
if Paige is qualified.
before they announce it.
Yeah.
Got
And
it.
I mean, that gap is, I'm not sure what it felt like to you in person, Ted, but that gap is not quick. They go to commercial break on the live stream. Like, it's a pretty long time.
No, it took them fucking forever.
Yeah.
And the whole time that they're out there on the floor, me, Jen, Carol, Ben, Paige's mom, like the whole crew is standing literally like 10 feet from her.
Yeah.
And she's looking over at us the whole time. Like,
Yeah.
did I make it? Did I make it?
Yeah. So luckily on the game site, they didn't have any scoring points wise, but they had times. So I went through and did it.
Yeah.
I had Paige qualifying by 3 points. But, you know, like, I sent that to both Caroline and Jen. I also thought that everyone was standing together, so I thought Gabe would find out and like everyone would know. Gabe had the old scoring table dropping by 5 instead of 3 or 2 or
3,
yeah.
yeah.
He had the old scoring table, so he had her on the opposite side. He had her not qualifying, so he was avoiding eye contact with her and like didn't know what to do.
To be fair, though, you told Jen, but you tagged it with if my math is right. So when it's
I was gonna get there. I was gonna get there. Yeah, I'm not done.
when it's 3 points,
We're on a
it's
journey
like,
right now. We're on a journey.
Yeah. So basically, it's just like I knew my math was right, but I didn't know like when they're doing the like making sure everything's good, is someone going to appeal? And then it's, well, actually, we know this person crossed before this person, and now those scores that I put in.
Flop, yeah.
But they started announcing, and all of the points were the points that I had. So I'm like, what are the fucking odds that the only person whose points I got wrong
They're
were
too
Paige?
high.
Yeah. So we were good. We were. She qualified.
I had a panic moment while I was doing that.
Yeah. No, my heart rate was fucking jacked.
We were going to the beach with the fam, and I'm driving like down to Pine Point, and everyone's like ready to get out of the car. I'm like, no, stay, don't move. We're gonna sit here and wait for her name to call. And they start calling the names.
Tossed
I'm like,
a sponge back to Zion, keep him occupied.
They start fucking real names. I'm like, all right, where's Paige? All right, where's Paige? Like expecting the next
Yeah.
number to be. I knew she wasn't like 7th or 8th, but I was like,
Yeah.
9th Paige. What the fuck? 10th Paige. What the fuck? And then finally they announced her name. I was like, all right, we can go to the beach now. We go. Let's go in the ocean. We're good.
Did a group text with her and Gabe after hearing that story, and Gabe was like, in all fairness, I told you that you needed to get this time in the workout and you didn't. Paige is just like, yeah, let me shave a minute off
Push a
real
button to make
quick.
it happen.
Yeah,
Most Gabe
That's how that
thing.
works.
yeah. And then he edited the message, and Paige goes, you edited that, I saw it. So that edit there. So week 1, stressful. Week 2, much more enjoyable to watch. Obviously, watching the Franco's Misfit team perform the way that they did, and there was something about the level of grit and urgency that they had the entire weekend that was very like symbolic and emblematic of what we do here, what we teach here, what we preach here. I think when you switch over to team, which some of their athletes were, some of them have more history with it, there's just this level of like, if we're going to let the fittest on earth do fucking intervals most of the time, then like your transitions literally do need to be sprints. And like you do need to push your teammate in certain events, and they need to push you in certain events. And there was something very like the writing was on the wall that they won that because of their mindset to me. Like I felt like they could have mixed it up with a handful of teams there if we just went and said who's strong, who's fit, who's skilled. They brought a level of intensity and grit to it that like really blew my mind.
They definitely had the focus on full disclosure, saw one event in its entirety, and it was the final, just because that's kind of how the weekend goes.
Now
But
you're famous. It's 3 million views on the video of you popping
Yeah.
your
Most
top
likes
off.
I've ever had on any comment ever.
yeah,
You're welcome.
Them famous titties.
Can I sign them?
God, fuck.
That's how that works, right?
you signed
Yeah, I
that.
sign yours.
Yeah.
But
how that works.
the biggest thing that stood out to me watching them do the final was just like that they just want it more. They just like I
Right.
watched
Yeah.
Alexis
And that's what the weekend looked like.
Ran from like worm to
Yep.
rope, ran to rope from to handstand push up land, and it was really fun to watch. But it was it
That
was
is
very
so
clear.
fucking different than an
3
individual competition, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like your first time out there, even if you're fit as hell, the first time you see someone sprint past you for a transition and a 15-minute workout, you're like, chill out, hardo. Like, it's like, no, that's
event 2
fire.
and the final are just ones that stand out the most. That muscle up, the synchro muscle up thruster
Yep.
workout, and then that final. It's just like watching them do that the way they did, knowing when it's time to go and when it's time to be more like just control the pace of things, like, and just separating themselves with the fact that they understood like how each other played off one another. And the fact that they did that with how little they all trained together was what blew my mind the most. Like these folks have got together for like one training weekend and like quarterfinals, and like that's it. The rest of them just go back to their corners of the earth and do their thing in the dark, and then come together and are somehow able to create that, like, I hate this word, synergy amongst the 4 of them to then do what they did.
You need a Patagonia vest to say that word.
That's probably next door. Yeah, it's next door.
Oh, do you have one?
I did. Oh yeah. You need a vest when you coach, guy. Your arms get warm, your core gets cold. You know, it's terrible.
Can you imagine how terrible your stock portfolio would be, though? I don't think you're allowed to have that.
I don't know what that is.
Well, he usually wears the Patagonia.
or because
X,
he
is that
does
what
what
you said?
everyone says not to do, he does well.
He's
'Cause no one does well.
Yeah, he's got the.
I set the market.
To be fair, when he wears the Patagonia vest, he's got like a hoodie underneath, a beanie on top, and like short shorts because it's like February. So
Yeah. It's like at Bates College,
it's a
I probably
different
would have been
kind
able to
of
buy drugs from you.
Patagonia. Yes, it's like
Yes, you
Patagonia. That's the drug dealer
Depends what year it
Patagonia.
was.
This is the drug
to build the
dealing
empire.
Patagonia vest, not the stock
Self-incriminating.
market Patagonia vest.
All right, Misfits, just a quick break to shout out our show sponsors and hopefully save you a little bit of dough. You can head to misfitathletics.com right now, go to the Hatchet program, and if you are focused on crushing the open, you are focused on improving your strength, your conditioning, or you just want to head in and attack everything on the balance track, we have all of that for you within one program. You get to head into Discord, you get to communicate with other athletes. You're not alone on an island, but you get your own sort of tweaks to the program that allow you to personalize to the level that you can make some serious gains while other athletes are still competing, coming down off of their season. You can head into the fall with a leg up. You can head to misfitathletics.com and get a 2-week free trial.
We're also brought to you by Proper Fuel. You can head to properfuel.co and use the code word Misfit to save on your order. Like Drew just said, Hatchet Off Season 2 is kicking off. And if you're looking for the right kind of supplements that have all the things that you need and none of the things that you don't, you can head to Proper Fuel. We've got pre-workout both with caffeine and without caffeine. We have protein that has both protein and carbohydrates, so you can hit those macros, make sure you're recovering from your training. And then last but not least, it's getting fucking hot. You want to make sure you have enough electrolytes in your system so you can perform your best. So again, you can head to properfuel.co, use the code word Misfit to save on any one of those great products.
And of course, we are brought to you by Sharpen the Axe. You can head to sharpentheaxeco.com, use your favorite athlete's code, or games athletes dropped a whole bunch of money on semifinals that those bank accounts are running on E. Please use their code. It's not a cheap endeavor. Even our qualifying games teams are not exactly pulling in a whole lot of money despite top finishes on the podium. So head to Sharpen the Axe Co. We've got a whole fuckload of shorts, t-shirts from semifinals.
Yeah.
The two of the new shorts, the gray framework STA short and the Misfit short, two of my favorite shorts that we've made. And I was walking around Pasadena with those all weekend. So again, head to sharpentheaxeco.com, get some stuff in the cart, get your favorite athlete code in that discount box so that they get a little bit of money to fund their trip to Madison. Okay, back to the show.
Week 3, I still have this coaches band on here. I've talked to a few people about this. Obviously, Luca had to withdraw from the competition, and I don't have an explanation for how I feel because it didn't happen. Like, I've had one athlete withdraw in the past that was truly at the peak of their fitness. And it was very challenging, but I was also coaching a handful of other athletes. Some of them qualified for the CrossFit Games. A lot of them had like breakthrough weekends. And it just seemed like a bit more closure having Austin around the whole time and like watching Caroline and, talking with his fam. There's just something different about that year. Whereas, I don't know. Part of me doesn't want to say things like I saw the scores and I know his testing, but like you would have been very impressed with what he had to show. I'll put it that way. I think that's a fair, like easy thing to say without putting another athlete down. So I haven't taken my coach's band off yet. I haven't even normally you're on the plane and you're like, this thing is annoying. Off, yeah. You rip it off and you take the photo on the tray table and it goes in like a backpack or something. I haven't even thought of cutting this thing off, and I'm sure it's annoying when I'm exercising, but there's just I haven't made it through the stages of grief yet. Yeah. So obviously that was.
And for the listener, I don't know how far you want to go into the weeds, but he was very sick, like physically ill.
Yes. Yeah. He got himself to a point where he was only a few days out of the hospital. He was, taking meds to keep food down. He put himself through absolute hell and in his eyes bombed event 1 and was mid-pack or better than mid-pack on that workout. And I think his body was just like, what did you just do?
What are you doing?
When I've had the flu in the past and you talk about you get up to take a piss and you're so achy and you don't want to walk, you don't want to cook your food, you don't want to do any of these things. And obviously how far off that spectrum can you get from normal activity sucks to trying to do that. So I think I probably want to leave it at that and interview him at some point and see how much of it he wants to put out there. And
yeah,
sure.
But he tried as hard as he possibly could to be out there, and it's pretty gut wrenching to go through that experience. But he's a young man, incredibly hard worker, a top level talent as well. Great dude. So obviously we're still, rooting for him in his corner, all that stuff. And he's got a long future in this sport, I think. So you guys will be able to see what that looks like. So going event by event, I don't want to say too much about the team stuff because I haven't put myself into the brain of programming team competitions in the same way that I have individual. But I do want to go through quickly and just be like, okay, event 1, for instance, why weren't the bag and the rope moved somewhere where we could tell where the team was in the event? If you guys don't want to spatially pull me back and show that the worm got moved, right? Round around?
Yes, the worm moved.
If you don't want to show me that, then every time the teams go back, and they're spending a long time visually for
a 4-minute dead period
for a spectator, why can't you just have them walk a few feet forward? They should have done it for all of the rounds, but let's say they only did it to show that this team is now on their second person, right? They've switched to get through to that. I don't understand. I'm number one. Boz's programming hasn't been that much different than Castro's. We did a games analysis and it was the same fucking games as it always been. We failed to predict 2 movements, I think, or something like that. It's still very similar. Same thing. And yes, wall facing handstand push-ups are just handstand push-ups. But Castro did better with
I think
what the fuck is going on the floor.
He doesn't have the handle on.
That is just
on the visual side of the things.
Right.
It was
it was a good event.
I liked the entire event for teams.
Some of the judging on the sandbag, though.
Yeah, suspect. But at the end of the day, I think the workouts got the right teams to the CrossFit Games, which I know is a cop out for everybody. Everybody says every year.
Yeah.
The right teams there, which is right.
Almost all of my notes are on the team side are literally just visual.
Yeah, no, like that's the one element that is missing here is like we want to be able to follow along with the story. And like, and that's another thing that's confusing. Like, you know, you've seen other people talk about this, but like they used to have those banners that hang over the railings. Like they just say clearly it's 3 rounds for time of 10 and 12, do the workout and people can kind of follow along because round 1's here, round 2's there, round 3's there. You don't really know where people are. And when you have 3 minutes of basically people moving in place, you're either fucking on an echo bike, you're running on a treadmill, or you're standing in place jumping up and down. Like, you have no fucking idea.
It took me 14 years to get my decoder ring, okay? I don't think I should have to bring it to know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
Because that means almost no one else knows what's going on.
Team especially, that's my biggest gripe with team is like even just the full floor view. And I know that this has a lot to do with just spatial limitations, equipment limitations, like logistical stuff. But it's like, I'm looking at a team floor for that event. It's like, there are 100 people on the floor right now, and I have no fucking idea.
Dude, when they're doing worm burpees, it's terrifying.
No one's like, I don't know what, I don't even know what team those people are on. Like, is that a judge? Is that a head judge? Is that an athlete? Like, which team? Like, it's
always
that's my biggest
been
qualm with team.
The redheaded
competition.
stepchild of the CrossFit Games.
Yeah,
but there are too many stars in it now.
Mm-hmm.
The level of play is too high for that to continue to be the case. Yeah. So it's just like, come on. Maybe decoder ring bias, but I thought event 2, pretty cool, pretty well programmed. I know people are up in arms about an AMRAP, but visually coming down the floor and sort of racing people to the thrusters, it didn't really feel like a doom loop or anything like that. Basically, if there's no difference between them just saying it's up to 39 and this is the time cap. It didn't feel like, a lot of people, again, complained about the AMRAP. It didn't feel like an AMRAP to me.
The only thing I think that could have been better there is if they had some sort of digital screen above each lane assignment so you could see what round of muscle ups they're in. Because when they're doing the muscle ups, you don't really know where they are. But when they go to the barbell, you like have an idea of where they are, like what round it is. Like it might have been helpful for like watching to be like, oh, if there's a giant screen that says 11 up there, that you know that these 2 athletes have to do 11 muscle ups before they move on. That's probably the only thing I would have made different about that.
Sort of like, because
or like
some of the cool ideas that they had, I thought the rep counters on certain things were pretty cool.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good change. I thought that we'll get to those fucking treadmills. I swear, hold me back. If you've been around for a long time, you know my history with treadmills.
World's fastest 800.
Also, not a good runner, so there's that. Okay, so yeah, I think potentially an improvement there would be some way of showing what round they're on muscle up wise, but you'd have to be clever about it because it's not intuitive. Oh, they're on 11. What is it? I don't know. Fuck's that? I don't know what that means.
It's also who's paying attention to the complete reps, and how do you know
the volunteers and the team of 9 working for the CrossFit Games?
Yeah, we're gonna have all of these volunteer judges hold one button in each hand and click for every rep, and then this one for every no rep, and also lock out your ring dip. Maybe sometimes.
Event 3, it wasn't live streamed. Okay, I'll just say that. We'll put that out there. I know it's already been talked about too much. But like, what the fuck? Like you basically were like, okay,
of the events
they're benching,
not live stream.
They're like, oh, they're benching. That means they're doing well. Like, I don't know. I just what I don't know what the fuck I'm watching.
Yeah.
I don't know. You Ted saw it in person. I mean, like, how was it? Was it any better in person to be able to tell? It just looked like a lot of people exercising furiously simultaneously.
Yeah, not really. I mean, it was pretty chaotic with the 20 lanes on that event.
Right. It was like Linda, same setup.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know. Event 4. Okay. This one was a tragedy because this was clearly very cool threshold testing. Like, shout out to the Invictus team, like how hard both pairs went in that workout.
Yeah, they hammered it.
That was silly. What the fuck am I watching? Like, again, what am I watching?
Yeah.
Them running back and forth and doing that. Like, I just, what? Like, it's just, okay, we test it. I know the test is good. I don't care if anyone knows what's going on until I'm supposed to guess which person's chipped and follow them as they run across the finish line, and the rest of the team
you can see
doesn't.
Yeah, maybe you can see the chip.
But again, good, sprinkle, a little sunshine, cool threshold work, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think about how they could make that without making the floor 45 miles long. Like how they could make that a better better representation, like how that could go. I don't fucking know.
You know what I would do? I would test different ideas and
Maybe we should do something different.
do the better one. I think event 5 they had the right idea with the rep counter thing, but still not
You
great.
remind me what event 5 is?
It's the lifting event.
Oh yeah,
Like they did it with the
Yep.
teams. They tried
Yep.
to do that, but again, like
That's to me
How do you
that's
guys all
like that's the
feel?
easiest one.
How do you
That's
guys feel
the
about
easiest
the
one
all
to
being worth the
get.
same points?
what do you mean?
Like 295, one rep at 275 power cleans the same value as one at 315. Like,
I mean, that's the sport, isn't it?
yeah, I guess. It's like, would it be better if the weight was bigger gaps between the weights and like they were weighted more if they were heavier?
I don't
or-
want to get into weighing different parts of
I
a
don't know.
workout. That's a pretty sassy scoring.
I also wonder
But
if
like, okay, I've done 5. I'm going to move the barbell forward. Like, come on.
yeah, I don't know. I almost wish that
We each get a minute. We don't care who's going when you're switching.
I wish it would have been a little bit longer. There could have been a little more separation if the window was a little bit bigger. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it panned out the way they hoped it would, but I wish there was a little bit more, more time to move the barbell, so there were more separation.
They could have
there.
had ascending windows, I think.
yeah, something like that.
Okay, so there's that. And then event 6, my question is, what can we do about this mess at the rig? Another good one, but there's a theme to the fact that we said almost the same thing for 6 events. Like what all of them mishmashing under that rig at once. What is happening?
Yeah, you can't tell.
What's going
It's
on?
chaos.
Like I honestly thinking about it, I'm like, oh, I wish I was there because if I was there, Jesus, that's probably even worse. This is no one like in my ear, like this is the team that's winning. The camera's not on them. Like you're trying to figure out what's going on,
Like,
especially
whose
early
head
in the
pops
workout.
out first to go back to the worm. Like that's
Yeah.
the only way you would know who's ahead. That's the only clue you'd have.
True. All right. Let's go be mean on the individual workouts now. Thoughts on event 1, gentlemen?
I liked. I think the intention of the mat, the sled mat, whatever it is, was there to try to make it as equal as possible. You know, just like varying surfaces, varying sleds, that sort of thing. I don't. It was kind of weird. The biggest gripe that athletes had, right, was that the thing was getting folded up like underneath. Like it was basically an equipment malfunction, right? The mat is like being folded underneath the plates as we're trying to pull it, and now this thing weighs like 80 more pounds than it should just because of friction. And athletes were told like you can't even like point the sled. Like, so say you finish your run, the sled is pointed in the other direction. You're not allowed to turn the sled around before. You just need to grab your rope, run down to the other end. The first couple pulls that you do is you straightening the sled out. And that's like, they had issues with it kind of across the whole floor, but it was like, I don't know. Was it harder in practice than it was in training? Was it I'd be curious to know what the variance kind of across the board was on that. And I think any time that you have an event where there are already a lot of variables as to how the event, we want to try to minimize the number of variables that an athlete has to like contend with that aren't related to their fitness. Like unfucking the mat from the sled, like, to me is not, I don't know, that's more frustrating. And you can make the argument that like, well, the athlete can go fix it. Like the athlete can stop pulling the sled, run out into the middle of the floor and fix it.
That's what the athletes in weeks 2 and 3, their version of devil's advocate was, why are you just pulling instead of you go over and literally pick it up and slide the flap under? Like, but those first week athletes, especially like those first few heats.
Yep.
Are they supposed to know that? Maybe they're pulling, they don't even know that the thing has folded under and gotten into that spot. So I know that in later weeks, athletes were like, yeah, in events, you got to take the time to like do certain things with your equipment. Like we've always had that, quote unquote. But I think it's easy to say that after watching people have like catastrophic failures in week 1, be like, shit, I got to pay really close attention to what my sled looks like as I'm like turning it. I can't just yank the thing and like have it get all messed up. So I agree just in terms of like, it was the right idea.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about just the sled individually. I think it was the right idea, but some way to connect the back of the flap up over in the other direction, like basically the way that the sled works in terms of how it's connected to the weights. I think there needs to be another one.
Maybe like it loops over and
exactly
it touches on the front end, so it can't.
So it does it on both
underneath.
sides.
Yeah. I just think that's like, there are plenty of instances where I would say, you know, for another event, it's just like, well, your failure to know how to manipulate the implement is like, that's a lack of fitness by definition in CrossFit. But there's also like, it's like, I don't know, like if you're a giant athlete and can get that sled like lifting upward and pulling, like everybody was saying, like Fikowski figured it out. It's like, well, Fikowski's also like 6'12", like 300 pounds, like, and it's like this thing is, you know, this event is like, this is a big person event. Like, no kidding, like the big man figured out how to move the sled efficiently.
That's probably the biggest thing I don't like about it, is I wish the sled was maybe a little bit lighter and they had to pull it longer, because it just seemed like whoever was the biggest person in the heat, like they're probably going to be.
I don't even know how
top.
much that would have changed just based on
I just
with
don't.
the machines.
I just see body size mattering too much in that event. And that's the thing I didn't really like about it. Like, and I know they're like, everybody out there trains CrossFit is of similar strength, and there's obviously variances from top to bottom, but not like, you know, there's not a guy out there that snatches 200 and a guy out there that snatches 400. They're all somewhere in the same ballpark, and it's just it seemed like the bigger athletes had better success there, and like I kind of wish that the sled was a little bit lighter and it was just about can you stay moving more than did you like figure out how to pull the sled. That to me seemed like a little bit of a bummer on that end, because the machines almost didn't matter. Like you couldn't walk on the treadmill or like barely ski. But
one theme for me was these new fields of 60, and a lot of these workouts, if they were at the CrossFit Games, would have felt and seemed much more appropriate. You take your Jason Hoppers and you're these people and you're those people, you put them together next to each other, then we're talking about potentially something entirely different, because then they're pushing off of each other. They're probably all in, you know, similar heats at the CrossFit Games. Like, I think a lot of these workouts were good for a certain level of athlete. But I don't know, like I would want to know whether it was on purpose or not, that the sled quote unquote malfunction was an element. And I feel like it'd be real convenient if they said yes. Like if your equipment is failing and you don't know about it, and then you say, well, it's part of the game, then you got to test your stuff a little bit better. Echo Bike at the beginning of that workout was a throwaway, right?
It's like the rowing in the chipper.
The running, there was serious separation, and the best of the best, regardless of size, crushed that sled and then went and ran harder than other people. And you can visually see, you can see their legs moving faster. You're like, holy shit, that person not only crushed that, but they're bigger and they're running faster.
I think everybody knew, at least it seemed like all the athletes knew, it was like, how do I pull the sled efficiently? How do I maintain a strong pace on the runner? It's like everybody was in, off the bike, understandably in a very similar amount of time. And then the separation occurred. And just with that style of workout, it's certainly difficult. And like, if you struggled with the sled on round 1, the odds that it was going to get easier in round 2 and 3 is pretty low.
What do we open that workout with? Double unders, like 333 style? Do we open it with a C2 bike? Like, what do we?
Because again, I don't hate double unders in that spot. I think that does enough to create, like, I mean, maybe I'm biased because that kills my heart rate every single time I do double unders. But I'm just
a smaller athlete can
he has a chance to hang those and like does nothing to them. You know, you watch Austin do 200 double unders and he fucking sleeps through it. Like, that's just how it is. And he's not necessarily a small athlete, but he's also not one of the biggest athletes on the field.
You're saying how to balance it out?
Yeah, get rid of the Echo. Yeah. I just don't understand the Echo Bike there with the rest of the programming for the weekend.
Yeah.
And not what it was. Like, if we go like larger calories, like there's a way to make it better. But I think of like a giant set of double unders, I mean, not interesting to watch, obviously. And then, I mean, with the sled, what do we do? Just 2/3? Like a down and back? Like, this is the moment when a bigger athlete who's going to need to be better on the sled and better on the ski to win can make up their time. Like, I don't know, 60 feet instead of 80. That's like very Monday morning quarterback, but like, I think it could have been better.
I didn't have a problem as much with the event as just like there was the visual element to it was, again, not very sexy. It was just kind of down and back. It was like 20 feet length that the athlete stayed within the whole time. You really have no idea where they're at. You don't know where they're at on the runner. You don't know where they're at on the bike. Some judges' hands go up, some don't. I was like waiting for Kelly's judge's hand. It was like close to the 5-minute mark and a hand hadn't even gone up. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like, and then she gets off the bike. And I was like, that would have been great to know, like, that we were close, you know, what you know, is
it's a shame at this point that the machines aren't linked together like they are for the marathon row, the half marathon row. It would be lovely to know where the fuck people are. Like, how do we not have that?
They didn't have those signs in Europe. So when they put the hands up on the 800-meter run, everyone was like, and I'm looking at the clock and like, they've been running for like 40 seconds. What the fuck is happening? And it turns out that they were doing 500, 400, 300, 200, 100 with their hands. But
that's riveting.
We didn't know that.
Really easy to see.
We didn't know that. From that point.
I think my biggest qualm was just like, was the sled supposed to be that? Is that what it was supposed to look like? Like, if it was, then I could be like, all right, well, it was the long test. It was like, it had a unique element that athletes don't practice. Like, okay, good enough, move on. But I think there's just a lot of issues that weren't directly related to the athlete's like capacity and ability to like go hard.
And to clarify, my beef with the opening there was we had 2 throwaway machines in the competition.
Yes.
And then obviously what the Echo bike is better for was used very well in event 7. Workout number 2, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people disliked this workout. The pistols were, they had almost nothing to do with the workout. And because again, in totality, like there wasn't as much of that, like put your head through a wall CrossFit. And once again, a shitload of upper body gymnastics and not a lot of lower leg like pump. This has become a theme. So now we got to look at, again, I'm totally fine with it for one competition, but does it happen again and again and again? Right. Is it just pegboards and wall facing and whatever? Like, we're just paying attention to the totality of it. We're not going to give you probably our true full opinion on his programming until we get 3 years of
need a full picture. You
semifinals and games, something like that. I didn't, it was like, do you have good balance in the middle of this? I don't know. That my problem with that workout was like, those seem to be a throwaway. Like, you could gain a tiny bit of an advantage if you got a little bit behind on the muscle ups, if you were the type of person that could blast those out. But like the whole, like, was it 5 back and 5s back and forth? It's just like,
well, it was, it was weird in California. The way that was briefed was very strange. It was like, you need to do them all on one leg, but you may touch the ground between reps once the judge gives you the call.
Depends what region you're in.
It seemed like that was a little
once
bit,
they gave you the call, you had to keep your foot in front.
You have to keep your foot in front, and once you like get to full extension and complete the rep, you can then put that leg back on the ground.
If they've said that you already have a rep.
Or if you already have the rep.
Yeah.
But you need to do 5 on each leg. I think
it's so easy to blast somebody's legs with a rock on. Like, what do we... Why 5
what would you have done instead?
Sets of 5 pistols? Like a big set of air squats would have been better.
Yeah.
Like, so
really?
there's...
I don't think so.
I think just to get them, they can't pick their knees up and jump. Like,
there was no...
The
pistols were so easy for people unless they didn't have the, like, mobility for it. Like, no one was...
if I had to guess, my guess was like upper body blast with muscle ups, lower body blast with pistols.
There's no blast.
Here's a
blast.
Yeah, maybe it's. I mean, maybe that's just. Maybe
that's
it's
like
not
opening a
enough
bag
pistols.
of Cool Ranch Doritos and there's just plain tortilla chips in there. There's no blast.
Maybe.
Someone explain that to me.
Sets of 5 pistols for the fittest people in the world.
You know what's funny is that you get to her talking about this. It's like, I almost wish the workout went in reverse. It was a buy-in, a burpee box jumps, pistols, and then max like muscle ups and a vest at the end of the event to like see what the capacity is. I don't know. Like,
I thought the beginning and the end were cool.
I mean, it might.
And
I don't know. Maybe
honestly,
it wasn't.
A big set of alternating pistols would have done wonders. So I'm not saying it was specifically you shouldn't put pistols right there.
It's pistols.
We're gonna do a set of 5.
That's a lot, bud. That's rude. That's a lot.
I have a feeling that was more. I feel like if I was writing that workout and I had to use those parameters, I would justify it by saying like the pistols are kind of a nuisance time taking up movement that does impact your lower body enough on these taller burpee box jump overs with a vest. I don't know. My biggest qualm with the workout is more kind of a question of what direction we're going to go as a whole. And that's a little bit easy. That's kind of like I thought about this at the event, and this was a movement that Kelly was like, we were working really hard on to figure out the best strategy to get the muscle ups done. Right. It wasn't like, how many sets can we do unbroken? It's like, what is the perfect strategy that's going to get us the best possible score, knowing that, we might find ourselves middle of the pack here. It was more a concern of like, one, what's the tolerance level of the spread of abilities, an athlete who gets time for 50 burpee box jump overs on one end to an athlete who qualifies for the CrossFit Games through week 1 with 0. And it's,
did she actually get 0 though, or was her score just 0 because she didn't get any burpee box jump overs?
You only get a score for burpee box jump overs, but if I remember correctly, she did not do very many complexes, if any. So it was. It's more just like, are we getting too fancy, I guess, is the question. And on the other end of this, of the opposite side, it's like, actually we're opening up the possibility for athletes. Like, there's a lot of variance that we haven't explored yet that we can really throw at these athletes. And that's great. If you're going to do that, I think one of the major things is the judging. I think that there's still the programming, if the programming is going to trend towards more of these like very clever, nuanced like movements and things,
meltdowns,
and I'm like looking at some of these judges, and I'm like, that motherfucker, there's no fucking way that person's ever been in a CrossFit gym. Or they're like, they don't.
I think they have to have a L1 in the judges course.
I know they have to have the judges course.
You have to do the L1.
I know you have to do it for the games. I think as a whole, there needs to be a professionalization of judging at the semifinals and up level. Just blanket statement across the board. Whatever the qualifications are now, it's whether you fucking tell Hiller to stop bitching on your Instagram about how terrible things are and go run a judge's professionalization course or certification course or something like that. But the more we like, with every iteration of here's a unique advanced movement, something we've never seen before, we are putting a heavy burden on judges to make calls like in the moment that are now even more than ever every season become more impactful to athletes, because we've seen it like couple reps here, a couple reps there is the difference between a games qualifier or not, between an athlete being a sponsored athlete or just a fucking semifinals athlete. Like there's a lot of second and third order effects to that. And I think my biggest concern with event 2 is just like, okay, like, so this is acceptable. Like, are we going to see vests in quarterfinals next year? Like, are we going to ask quarterfinal athletes to wear vests? How are we going to standardize that? There's a lot of...
He skipped ahead for sure. One of the things that's happened in the advancement of the sport in the past is the athletes have been given an opportunity to show off what they're capable of at the CrossFit Games.
Yep.
And then it's sort of thrown out like, this is fair game now, just so you know.
Yeah.
You've been warned.
Yeah.
Last year, like, it would have been appropriate to have crossover double unders at semifinals this year, just based on how they used to do it in the past. Again, the top heats of this were really fucking cool. Judging wasn't good enough in some of them.
Yep.
This event at the CrossFit Games with CrossFit Games judges and maybe a little bit more space to show us what's going on.
That would have been gnarly.
Would have been a very good event, right? But again, there's a little bit of a theme as you work your way down. You're just kind of like, well, like, do we want to see heat 1 of 6 do this event? Do we want someone to be able to qualify if they literally can't even do this event?
Right.
Like, I think they're worthwhile questions. And again, you could have done pistols there. You could have just extended the thing 30 seconds or a minute or whatever in Windows and had them do an amount that fucked their legs up enough for it to be an issue on the, like, it was close.
Yeah.
It was close to being what it should be. And it was very appropriate for the best of the best on the rings if they had a good judge.
Did feel a little bit more like a games event than a semifinals event.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I wish there were more just gymnastics, like just in general. Like, it just felt like that wasn't enough place to separate. Like, at this point in the season through quarterfinals.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Through quarterfinals and semifinals up to this date, we've really had no tests that have a high frequency of gymnastics that separates people. Which workout?
We've had a lot.
I mean, I can think of the rope climbs at the end of the quarterfinal workout, the 9 rope climbs.
I mean, those wall-facing handstand push-ups ended people's seasons. People pretended to retire after because they didn't make it to the CrossFit. Like, you know what I mean? Like those did something to people for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't.
There's a lot of upper body gymnastics in quarterfinals.
Yeah, but I didn't think any of them.
Basically, only upper body gymnastics in general.
Yes. Yeah. So you're saying there's no gymnastics. They've got the ring ruck. They've got one where I felt like I was watching the circus for 45 minutes in the middle of a workout with a couple of 500-meter rows mixed in.
Yeah.
So there were enough gymnastics. I'm wondering what you mean by that. What movement?
Well, just like enough of any single movement to create a giant separation. Like the ruck muscle ups, ruck toe to bar, or toe to ring complex. There weren't enough of them to separate you from everybody else. I don't think for a lot of athletes. Don't get me wrong. There are people who could not physically do that movement and had to like intentionally going in, breaking them up. But like, you know, I think it would have been better if it weren't with a ruck and just more of them, like more of those complexes, more pistols, and then you just let people off to the fucking races on the burpee box jump overs. That would, to me, make a better event for that level of competition as opposed to what they did this year.
Or just 7 ruck muscle ups, maybe.
Yes, just something that you can separate on.
A lot of new elements mixed in at once.
I don't know. I think that there's like, you know, we haven't seen like even the final event, like that was a cool event, but I wouldn't have minded if there were a few more toes to bar.
We'll get there.
Yeah, when we get there. So
all right, tell me what you think about Linda.
Cool event. I couldn't watch fucking half of it, so I don't fucking know. Like, I was very thankful that because I was stuck at home, that someone was able, they allowed them, because historically, I don't think they would have allowed someone else to come in and broadcast their event for them. Like, I'm very thankful that the CrossFit podcast was able to go and do it.
Someone else.
Yeah,
quote unquote.
Someone else.
Yeah.
But, and again, at first week, it was a little choppy. The live stream was fucking great. It was all pixelated. Week 2 was much better. So, like, cool test. It seems kind of like a fun thing you would do at your affiliate. I don't know.
How crazy is Jason Khalipa? You got a shout out to, he's been bringing the energy at like a 46 out of 10.
Did he do the workout? And you talking about him doing the workout?
He was on the live stream and yeah.
And he was,
I'm trying to think of like a sports commentator. Like, I can't think of one.
Just like, what's Gus's last name from March Madness? The guy that fucking is.
I don't really watch that much.
Fuck, I can't remember his last name, but like that dude brings the fucking energy from March Madness every year. But Jason's at that the entire time. I don't know if anyone
screams in golf.
Yeah,
but he's
some pretty loud whispers on the screen.
Oh my god!
All right,
lovely.
Hunter, Linda.
Good test. Not the most riveting to watch, but I think it was a good test. I think
I don't know.
Yeah, it was.
Wasn't it? Isn't it like?
It was fine.
It's a great affiliate
I think it was fine.
Is it like gray? You know,
like I mean, it
wasn't a bad workout, but like
it's not a visually appealing, particularly fun to watch.
And it was another one where like, what's your body weight?
Another one with body weight.
Shout out to Paige Semenza.
Some
fucking
like a little bit of like just nitpicking, like judging and stuff like that. Athletes doing like, hey, don't tip the dumbbells. It's like, all right, I'll just do these tricep extensions. Like, all right, I'm gonna smash the barbell off the ground in these deadlifts. But I don't think that's unique to that event. I thought it was a fine event. We've done it. We've seen it before at the same level. I'm assuming it was a dumbbell bench press for logistical purposes and spatial
I figured based
issues.
off that year in 2017, they brought all those fucking fancy ass like West Side setups for every single athlete, every single lane. It's huge pain in the ass.
It made me think of, could we do a DT-esque workout with 3 different barbells? Could you deadlift heavy? Have some sort of clean in the middle, have like a shoulder to overhead, like descend down. I don't know. I think it's like we already did this and it wasn't that great the first time. I know it's a throwback, so we get like a named workout in there, but it felt like a bit of a like, here it is.
Yeah, I think there other ways that could have been. It could have been like a light Linda where people actually have to like race through it versus like I have to go at this speed because I know that I can't bench press that well or that quickly or whatever it is. So yeah, I mean, again, if you remove that or if you make the change here, what does that do to the rest of the weekend? So hard to
just kind of wish it was like almost like a do like a 10-1, but it was like deadlift, front squat, shoulder to overhead, and you'd move from 10 to 9 to 8 all the way down the floor to the end.
Like kind of contradicting myself here as far as not being all that visually appealing. One, I think it could be. I think it could be like whether it's on the broadcast with like a leaderboard or there could be a way. There's a relatively small number of reps. You know, it's 165 reps. Like isn't that many? Like there's got to be a way to better indicate where athletes are. And again, I know there's a spatial limitation.
There's a second judge that sits back there and clicks the button, right?
Yeah, something like that or whatever. But it was
like a pylon movement. Like move the chest piece type of thing.
I mean, they tried to say the squat clean bar was that, right?
We did that. Well, yeah, but it was like the first 5 rounds are done in this one spot. So you didn't actually know where people were
they
until
only moved the bar.
I wouldn't know.
You only moved the bar actually twice, and it's like I don't know where so and so are, and it was. I don't have a problem with the test. I think. Hopefully we maybe mix it up like Linda Light or something like that in the future. But if I see,
I don't want it to happen again. Okay,
fine with that.
I think events 4 and 5, massive asterisk. I will rant. Feeling saucy. Best programmed portion of the competition.
It could be better.
I think
it was a good event. Could be better.
I think the final was. I would agree. I think the last 3 events were the best programmed portion. If that makes what was 6?
6 is the
chipper.
The chipper. I guess 4 and 5 as kind of like an event, a single event, and 7. But I thought it was.
Yeah, those are my favorite events.
Cool. I think my only gripe there is I don't who published it. Was it WOD Science or someone talked about the running calibration? I remember looking at the times from fucking Orlando, and I was just like, "There's a minute. Like, how are these women a minute faster than these? Like, here is it?" And like,
it was treadmill to treadmill
and like in
events.
Lanes, like across lanes that seemed to be inconsistent.
2018, I believe. Triple threes. Yes, it was 2018 because 2018 was Linda, right? It was triple threes, then Linda at regionals.
Yeah. It was the year after 7.
So the treadmills at the East regional did not work, and the judges were counting the stripe.
White stripe on the belt.
Young Cody Mooney decides to hit start on his monitor after they were told not to.
Checks out.
That checks out.
And
I know he's listening.
Yeah. He's so pissed.
His judge decides to watch his monitor and not count the stripes.
Yeah.
There was something to like him hitting start, and other athletes had a monitor, but it was supposed to start with the belt. Whatever the fuck. Shout out to Assault. Like, they make great products. We're friends with them. Yep. That treadmill is one of the best like training machines that you can buy. I swear to fucking God, if this happens again, like, what are we doing? How is it possible? How are you going to do that to somebody in a competition? How are you going to do that? The amount of work. I mean, the first one is like a bit of a throwaway, but again, when you see like everyone knows like James Sprague running, and he's like a 4 minute 800, and you're like, wait, what? Why is
that dude runs fucking 5 minute miles? Sure. It's taking me 4 minutes to run an 800.
And maybe it was a strategy thing because is not as into the lifting as he is the conditioning, but like how is it possible that they let this happen again, and that they told coaches that the way they calibrate the machines is they run on it and then they jump off and they count the amount of rotations to see if it's the same on each treadmill?
This is the stupidest shit ever.
You run on the treadmill and you get it up to a certain speed and then you jump off. You ghost ride it, and I count to make sure that it spins the same. That is the calibration. Interesting, yeah, that they're using. So, right idea. Honestly, not even bad execution from the standpoint of we snap our fingers and it's more calibrated like a Concept 2 machine would be for international rowing championships or whatever. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That cannot be a thing. You cannot have a treadmill that's like 30 seconds slower than that.
Much rather let them
absurd.
just run around the goddamn arena, and who cares if you can compare from semifinal to semifinal? Let them fucking run, just run their self, and who cares?
I don't think they could.
So again, I know that would just have them eliminate. They'd disappear into the mist for 3 minutes and then come back and snatch, and that might not be the greatest event for like. The
but they literally there are places where that wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think of they wouldn't have been able to do that in Germany. They would have been running through lobbies and upstairs, and
when they announced the event, the first event, like the description on the website said 2,000 meter air runner. The description for 4 and 5 said run 800 meters, and I
thought
was
about
like,
the YouTube reaction to shuttle runs, and
well, that's what I told
tail between the legs.
Kelly practiced it with shuttle runs. I was like. Maybe it was stupid for me to just think that they were playing games of some sort. And I was like, I think like I'd be surprised if they used the air runner twice in the same weekend. And like, and here's an easy way to like make this like really shitty. The window kind of made sense that maybe it takes them about 4 minutes to do an 800 meter shuttle run, or like three and a half, and it'll be about the same amount of time. And then they obviously changed it to air runner. So it was like, yeah, I don't know what the solution is. I don't know if it's because it does seem like not to shit on anybody, but like I feel like the Concept 2 machine calibration,
but it was made for that.
Tight.
I think it's a square peg, round hole situation. Mm-hmm. Like no one cares if you're 5 seconds off in your affiliate class running side by side 100. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter. Yeah, it doesn't matter. That stage. It's so demeaning to the athletes and what they put in for work to say,
might be off a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, you think about you work 51 weeks of the year and then you're decided because the treadmill calibrated fucking off. Like that sucks. You worked, you've done everything you can and you just have bad luck and get the bad lane.
How could they fix it? I think the row was a throwaway in event 6. We can put a row in, but then we don't have, again, we're like drastically balancing this for a larger athlete. We already are on that type of treadmill compared to going and running out on the road. But like, I don't know. I think the whole running thing is very unique. You see who leads the pack at the CrossFit Games, and a lot of times it's some big gentlemen, like some 205 to 215 people are leading that. So I mean, I think you'd have to change the power snatch. You'd have to maybe make that the overhead squat. I don't know. There's a way to make that better for sure.
What did you think of going to the power snatch? What do you guys think of the weight and the reps for that workout?
I do wonder if it was.
It feels like it was maybe either a few reps too few, or the barbell like could have been a little bit heavier for 8 reps. Just watching everybody go over there and rip 8 really fast, like I kind of wish it would put them in a little bit more of a hole going into the treadmill.
I think it was intentional.
Wasn't it fucking them up a little bit?
It was like
that's metabolically very demanding.
Yeah, I think it was like anybody who's going, like there will be a decent spread. Like there are going to be some, but very few athletes who can't do this unbroken.
Yeah,
and it's therefore like from 3, 2, 1, go. You got to run off your starting mat. You got to put your hands on. You have to do 8 touch and go, and then you have to do an 800 meter time trial. It was
and if you get a no rep,
it was a shitty buy-in. To the event. I don't know that it was again, you make it heavier to the point where like half the field does 5 touch and go and then 5 quick singles. I think that changes the importance of the run, which was the intention to begin with. I think we wanted to see people light their hair on fire and turn
both
blue,
of them
turn
had the
blue in the last 100
nuisance
meters
that you had to figure out how to maneuver.
Yeah,
that seemed like it was on purpose
because the events were together. It was like okay, on this one the snatch matters, on this one the run matters, and here's a nuisance buy-in to both that is the opposite.
And you got to see that spectrum too. You got to see heats 1, 2, 3. There were some people that did not move that barbell very well, very fast. So at the CrossFit Games, that needs to be 205 or
15 reps at 165.
Exactly. Yeah. It was a cool progression of the sport moment though. That's not touch and go not that long ago. People look at that and they're like, holy shit.
Yeah, just about every heat was doing that too. Yeah, I think it was cool. It was still like, there's still like I understood what they were trying to do with like the little placards moving like how far people are along, but there is still like there's an element missing from a visual perspective.
It's not on a screen, man. Just like
I'm cheering, like I'm cheering for an athlete. It's like, okay, I moved. They went 200 further meters. It's like we moved. Like cheer. Okay, now what?
Keep talking.
Cheer. Now what? It's like what, how do we give a bit better visual representation for what people are doing? Do we compare 800-meter times to like what's like an Olympic 800? What's a high school track and field 800? Like, what's that,
I just feel like if there was some way to link those treadmills together and you could just see it, like,
yeah,
I thought going to the
agree.
games and watching the half marathon row would be the fucking stupidest event of my life. Like I went there going into that like little roller derby arena back in Carson. I mean, this is going to be so stupid.
Yeah.
We're going to sit here and watch someone row for 90 minutes. And because you could see boat splits, you could see each individual's pace, you could see where they were in relation to one another.
Yeah.
Like it stayed engaging the entire time. And the commentators get a good job of making it engaging. They have to find a way to make that part of the event better.
Yeah, I think that could be a good general like statement is like, if it's a machine, if it's something that has a digital display, like why is that information not being projected to the viewer? And also like it really sucks for the athlete. Like I've always there's a small part of me that's kind of, I've always wondered, like, what would it be like if there was one event at the CrossFit Games where you have to do it entirely on your own? Like you are in a cubicle. It's like 10-minute AMRAP,
like chaos
10-minute AMRAP, or it's chaos. It's a chaos. It's like, you don't know what everybody else is going to do. All you have is like, these are the workouts. Here's the workout. Here's your judge. Do it, and then at the end of the day, the leaderboard will shake out, and we'll see. You'll see where you fell against people who you.
Isn't that what they did for all of the events?
What I was thinking of right now is just like a lab. And you're looking down like lab rats going across. And
it would be like it's all like all these dividers. It's just lanes of dividers where you can't see who's on the other side. And so I always thought like, oh, that might be a cool event, but it happens so now it's like, but that's the case with every event with a machine. And it's like athletes have no idea where they are compared to other athletes. And you could make the argument. It's just like, doesn't fucking matter. Like just go as hard as you can. Like just try as hard as you can. It's like you lose the element of gamesmanship. You lose the element of an athlete recognizing where they are compared to somebody that they need to beat. And like the digging deep to like, okay, maybe I do have, if that person's got that in the tank, then why the fuck don't I? But instead it's like, right? I'm just going to run. I'm like in my bubble. I can't see, like if it's an 800 meter around a track, like we've talked about that as a cool CrossFit Games event. Like give me a fucking airplane hangar straightaway, 1 mile time
just
trial.
Fucking fast straight direction.
All 120 athletes, 3, 2, 1, go, 1 mile straight away. Like you imagine how fucking cool that would be?
Kill each other to do that. They would literally die, and it would be one of the most entertaining events ever.
We got an 800 meter
would die.
time trial. We got
maybe a little bit inside, not actually die, but like how fucking bad would they hurt each other? Like
800 meter time trial, and some of it too was like, it's like if you get to the runner first and can hold a pretty good pace, it's like, yeah, I think with it, if we're going to continue to use machines as heavily as we are, there's got to be a better way to visualize.
Aren't they better for creating the athlete to then show off the cool thing in person?
Yeah,
then
it's
like,
over.
let's
we
get
talk
them
about
in
it in
every
training, right? It's
event.
like,
they're a good training stimulus. Testing, meh.
Workout number 6.
Throwaway overhead squats and throwaway fucking rowing.
I mean, the overhead squats on the way back had a little bit of juice to
Let
them.
them hang onto the barbell and fucking step forward if you want. So I have to put the bar down and go to that next bar. Like,
yeah, I don't know. It was like,
I don't know.
it almost looked like different workouts to me within the exact same workout. The big chunk of this workout was people spinning around on their hands, wall walking, sitting. I don't know. There was just something too visually. It looked like a fucking carnival or something. It was just a really odd workout, again, to visually watch. And like, I think it looked, that was one of the workouts where it did look better when they were zeroed in on someone and you could see like how hard this movement is. But when you paired back and people were just falling over in the lanes and then like someone would get stuck in a certain spot, I don't know. Like, maybe a better workout at the CrossFit Games with a few small tweaks, but the middle chunk of it felt gimmicky to me.
It did feel more like a games workout in the sense that, again, there's like, here are a lot of new variables. There are a lot of new movements and stuff like that. A lot of things for the athlete to consider. And yeah,
do we need all of them at once? Did we need all of them?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Boom, boom,
I
boom.
don't want. Yeah, we need like
None of them were individually bad.
Give an athlete like they're. It's the entire the middle 7 minutes. What was the workout. It was like, how do I strategize through this? Everything else is a throwaway. I feel like, I don't know. There were a lot of things that athletes had to figure out, and I think that hindered the way that the workout went more than it demonstrated an athlete's capacity. I guess it's the, are we finding capacity? Are we being gimmicky? Are we doing too much? Are we, or is it appropriate? Is it just acceptable that with a 60-person field and some unique events that there is maybe we need to adjust our expectations, and like there is a really, really big spread of capabilities where some athletes are not going to do a legless rope climb from a seated position, and it's like, this is how we get the right people to Madison to the games, or is it like, is there a best of both worlds situation?
Imagine stumbling on that event as a casual observer of CrossFit, or someone that was like interested in looking up CrossFit. You just see people like crawling around on mats, like back.
You would
by the
assume
handstand
CrossFit
push-ups.
was like very, very, very fancy gymnastics heavy.
Yeah.
You would assume that
Sure.
by watching that. I think I could have handled that portion of the workout better if people literally couldn't use their lower body after the first 3 minutes of that. Like, can we blast out high rep overhead squats? Can we at least bump up the number on the row up to calories, or switch that over to a C2 bike, or get them again to do something where they're showing off their ability to clear waste versus I want you to be like marginally annoyed before you have to do a bunch of gymnastics. And then if you're in a race, you need to try.
There was also the requirement. It was like, you have to do 10 reps at a time for the overhead squat. And Kelly, in training, Kelly was like, we were practicing big sets of overhead squats, and I was like, get a big set in at 125. Let me know, tell me, kind of make a mental note. When does this get hard so that we can strategize? And then it gets announced, and it's like, you can do 10 here. You're going to drop your barbell. You're going to move it forward. And I was like, okay, well, problem solved. You're just going to do 2 sets of 10 overhead squats. You're also, so it's like first 500 meter rows a throwaway. You do 2 sets of 10 overhead squats just like everybody else, and then the workout begins. And it was almost the same thing at the end, barring athletes
that 500
racing.
meter row, it just felt like I don't know, like Mad Libs.
Yeah, you get on it and you're like, all right, I'll see you in 2 minutes. And
The
8
one square
seconds.
left, that sticker that I can bring over and put into this space says 500 meter row. I don't know. Just it
I
could
wanted like a fucking 500 meter row, long handstand walk, the crap they had in the middle, long handstand walk, 500 meter row. I don't even care about the overhead squat portion of that workout. Like, I wanted them to I want some sort of incentive to go hard on the rower at the end of the workout, but everyone's going to all the guys are going to row like 150 in that workout. All the girls are going to hold like a 202 in that workout. And there's not like no incentive to go any harder than that. Like, there really isn't, unless you're like side by side and you can literally see someone's screen. Maybe you go a couple seconds faster, but there was no impetus to like really put the hammer down, because you had to be so calculated about the middle portion of that.
And the
workout.
only reason I suggested the changes I did is from a total, like the whole entire weekend standpoint. Obviously, that's an easy way in a competition to just blast people.
I think it could have been it might have been just as simple as one pirouette, 1 legless rope climb, 10 handstand push-ups, and then it's just a manageable enough dose where it actually does for the top
rounds.
It's like it make it a race, not that was very much a, can you do this workout?
Yep.
Can you do it or can't you? And obviously there's an element of how fast can you do it, but nobody was doing it fast.
A better example would be like that workout from regionals.
That
year
French
back.
kid did it fast. Holy shit.
That regional workout from years ago, that was like calorie row, chest to bar, handstand push-up. It was like 5 rounds of like 20, 16, and 12 or something like that with deficit handstand push-ups. It was like 16 or 17. Like, that version of this workout, I think, is really good. Make them row like 250, do 12 or 15 overhead squats, 1 legless, like you said, handful of the wall facers, and let them go through 4 rounds of that. Then we have a good test.
It's event event 2, even event 1, it's like event 1, I'm either not big enough to move the sled, upper body, pulling. Event 2, it's like, do I have the basically just muscle up capacity? Event 3, can I dumbbell bench press? Event 6, is my upper body handle this like
at the lower,
totality
at
of
the
volume?
like 15th to 60th, I agree with that. Because the top people were able to do all of these workouts.
Sure.
But we're going to watch 60 people do this.
Yeah.
Event 7, I had a similar note. I think it was a really awesome workout for the best of the best. Most of it, if it was going to be written better for 60 people, the sandbag should have mattered more. But when you watched specifically Fikowski and Vellner race, and they actually tried to send that workout, Vellner carrying that sandbag was hilarious. It was like, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't talk afterwards. So like,
It's my favorite part of the event.
you wonder whoever tested this must have been a monster, right? Because they probably like really died at the end of this workout. But there were a lot of people where they weren't able to bring the heat on a particular element.
the workout, yeah.
Most of the people, the toes to bar, which again, for some of the heats, it was just like,
See,
well,
that's so surprising to me. I thought it would be similar. I thought,
there weren't so few people did that workout unbroken.
yeah, there were fewer people than I expected to do that unbroken.
Like the people who won the workout a lot of times didn't go unbroken.
Right. Yeah.
Vellner didn't go unbroken.
Yeah, no, and he's a fucking
Which
grip,
is like grip monster. Yeah,
Yeah,
which is
but he-
surprising. Sent it
He
elsewhere.
shredded that bike. It was like, oh, okay. All right.
I
Here
actually,
we are.
I think this was probably the best event. And also I just like the fact that we've finished a weekend on an event that was like, how hard do you want to try for the most part? It wasn't like, obviously there's a little bit of a, muscular fatigue element, but for the most part, we see events that's just like 15 muscle ups, squat, clean ladder. It's like, can you do this? Like, we're going to find out who can do this. Even last year at least in Tennessee, it was very gymnastics heavy, very like heavy, high skill sort of deal. Whereas I think it was cool that they did kind of classic CrossFit, 3 rounds for time of 3 very grunt worky, especially at this level, movements where it's just like, yeah, you want to go, you're 10 points out of the CrossFit games. Like you're about to hurt really, really bad. And it's not a matter of, it's like, man, I hope I can do this and I hope my competitors can't. It's like, I'm in the driver's seat for this one. So I thought that was a cool finish to the weekend. I didn't really have a problem. You thought it should be more toes to bar?
But
Convincing.
it was past the threshold for almost every athlete there for the toes to bar. I don't understand tweaking that portion. Why would you do that?
I think maybe
in a sprint.
I'm just like looking at the entire event, and it felt like it was very power based for almost the entire thing. Like the bigger, stronger power based athletes are going to have a significant advantage over someone that's maybe a little bit smaller than. It just like, it seems, how CrossFit's programming can sort of dictate the kind of athlete that will excel from year to year, like whether that was like the dumbbell year or like 2013, it was like, are you big and strong? And the next year it's like, you got to go fast and be quick in gymnastics. Like it felt like it had a slight like power bias to the entire weekend.
People don't dislike toes to bar though, especially in volume. Like, what do you maybe drop the calories? 12.9? Does that help a smaller athlete? Enough?
Maybe a little. I don't know. I think about that. And again,
I agree with you, but I don't know that the toes to bar is the solution.
No, it's probably something earlier in one of the earlier events to fix that. But yeah, I don't know. It was an exciting event. I was actually not sure being at 3 rounds. Like always, it always ends on like a bang. It's a short chipper that you just die on.
It's pretty long.
And I was like, is this going to scratch that itch? Is it like the 2-minute, 3-minute hell like everyone goes to the end? And I watched, I was like, no, it's good.
It was fun, really fun to watch as a coach, knowing body language really well and seeing athletes on the bike that third time doing that thing where you go like, like you can tell that they're really trying and their muscles are like, guy, it ain't here.
Yeah.
You can stomp your feet as much as you want, but
trial you might.
we're going to be going up and down. Can we possibly put a pretty bow on the end of this episode and not be just another content stream right now that's super negative about this stuff? I know it's hard now. Can't like go back on all of the stuff.
Yeah, this is gonna be my final thoughts. Could this be final thoughts?
Yep.
Go for it.
I think that
I'm fucking out of here.
Fucking done, kid.
At the end of the day, to be cliche and to use the same, give the same excuse as always, the right athletes are going to the CrossFit Games, I think. I don't think there was a massive problem, and we have again shifted the landscape of the semifinal. Like, again, this is like the, I don't know, 7th iteration in the last 2 years of semifinals. Somehow we've got bigger, fewer venues, more athletes. And like, I think that's kind of cool. That gives the athletes, like the no-name athletes, maybe the opportunity, who's been kind of like in the shadows to make a splash and to potentially create some excitement. CrossFit would do well to exploit that in a manner that is beneficial to the athlete and to the sport. And then I do think that because we've now seen, now the question is, right, it's like, what are quarterfinals going to look like next year? And I think that the increase in maybe average difficulty, I think I don't know, do you guys agree that this was a harder semifinal than in previous years?
I don't know what you mean by it's hard to quantify.
So it seemed
skill level was super high.
A higher skill level, sure. I think there is competitive CrossFitters are now on notice that there is a lot of different things that we can do that are not thrusters and pull-ups,
machines and somersaults. Sorry.
There are a lot of ways. I would not be surprised you can mark my word. I said last year that we're going to see shuttle runs in the open. So I'll put my hat out there now. I see like a pirouette handstand walk in quarterfinals. Like, maybe it's a 25-foot walk with one of those little guys in the middle.
That's what it used to be. So now you're going to have to be able to jump spin. You're going to be able to put your hands down.
No, but he was saying it's like kind of it goes down one level.
But it didn't. So many of these things were just like, this didn't come down from anywhere. Good luck, bitch.
Good luck.
Didn't they they had to pirouette in the games last year, didn't they? The skill?
Yeah, I was talking more the ruck stuff. That to me was like very like, whoa. Okay.
I see.
Here we are.
Okay, so either way, I think that what it's done is like we've basically opened up the field a lot more. So people's training is now going to might look a little bit different as far as like, hey, we need to actually train a little bit more of this variance, or be willing to say like, hey, you're going to wear a ruck instead of a vest for these muscle ups. You're going to run with, I don't know, like a kettlebell in one hand and a sandbag on your shoulder in the other. Like, I don't know. It's like we have the potential to increase the level of competition just by saying like, there's a lot of things that you have to do. And every time we do that, the cream kind of rises to the top and it drags everybody else along with it, which hopefully is good for the sport. So that's my positive spin on it.
To be honest, I really like that there's more than 3 and more than 5 athletes qualifying from a single semifinal.
The parity was cool.
I like the parity, and I also like the fact that, like, a lot of times the top 3 maybe are decided, 4 out of 6 events in, you're like, all right, cool, who are the last 2 spots? Like, I like the fact that things bounced around a lot and people flip-flop on the leaderboard and there's drama at the end of the weekend. And then it's just really cool to be able to see, like, you're no longer screwed if you live in a certain part of the United States. Like, you're in, NorCal and they have 3 spots and, you're not Kalipa, this person or that person, so you aren't getting one. Like, I like the fact that there's the opportunity for people to be up and coming.
A real shot to make it.
I agree with that.
I really like that. And it was fun to watch them announce a bunch of new names I've never heard of before. I'm like, this is what the sport needs. It needs an injection of new athletes and the opportunity for it's like, oh, I'm sorry, you live in the Central East and the same 3 guys have qualified for the last 7 years. You have no chance of qualifying unless one of them gets hurt. Like, good luck to you.
Yeah.
That part was really cool. So, not that I don't miss certain elements of the old regionals with like your, you get to go down there with your gym in that environment, but it was very cool to have like a much bigger field of athletes coming from one single region because it made for more interesting stories. And the entire weekend, there was like the drama surrounding who's going to qualify. And, even though they're 38 points out going to the last event, because there's so many athletes in the field and how good the field is, there's a chance that person can jump into, not just squeak in, but finish like 7th. That's a cool event. And, that's something I really appreciated with the new style of semifinals, and I want to hopefully have that continue moving forward because it makes for a much more interesting weekend from top to bottom. If even if you don't have athletes they're invested in.
I like it.
Good point. My first thought was the parity in general. I thought it was really cool. We did an episode and I think this should help solidify it because it was on a larger scale. We did an episode in the fall after the Madrid championship, and we talked about how asinine it is to compare yourself to 1,000 other misfits on a single Metcon, because when you take 80 high caliber athletes, you can take someone who came in the top 10 at the CrossFit Games and they're going to take a 38th. So if we expand that out to 800 people, that's 380. You'd come in quote unquote 380th on the blog in a random Metcon. You're one of the fittest men on the entire earth. Okay, let's start to think about how we can get better and think about your training from the standpoint of I'm me and I'm trying to move myself along and not comparing ourselves all the time. We get a really cool representation on close to the largest scale of what that looks like. The obvious one is Medeiros finishing where he did. I think there's a bunch of reasons for that. But you got to see people, you got to see both sides of it. Like if an athlete showed up to that and like took top 10s or almost all top 10s, that is a fucking statement.
Yeah.
Like regardless of how balanced you thought the programming was, that was a statement. Because if you go through, you see these people that like you thought did really, really well. They took 6th place. If they had had those finishes in previous years, they wouldn't have sniffed the CrossFit Games. And
you take one finish outside of top 20 last year, you're fucked. The weekend's over.
Yeah, Luca was like top 10 in every event other than the lift.
One lift.
And he didn't qualify for the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
If you did that this year, you would have been in 2nd or 3rd. So I think that was a really cool part of it. We got to see how awesome it is that there is this person who hasn't connected all the dots yet, but they're going to fucking smoke you on an 800 meter run or a 1 rep max snatch, or they're, a previous gymnast and they put on this show of like, oh my God, what did I just see in event 6? So I thought that was really awesome. And then I just think the other side of this is we can't do a podcast like this, especially if someone's not going to listen to all of our podcasts. Because if you've listened to all of them, you know that we've actually defended him and this, sort of regime
almost
maybe a bit more than other people have, a lot more than other people have. So if you're listening to this in a bubble, how fucking easy is it for us in our purple chairs to watch and come in after the fact and say what we're going to say about these things? You just hope that the director of the CrossFit Games and the director of, programming and all of these people are trying to improve the sport and looking at where they can continue to make it better. Like that's the hope. That's what I would want. Like, don't think Boz listens to this podcast, but if you do, Boz, like we are just looking for, like, if you knew that something was screwed up, that you basically just want to make it better. And maybe if the games aren't all upper body gymnastics and machines, that would also be pretty cool.
Boz, make sure you comment so you can get your jersey.
Oh shit, Boz, you want to goon? This would be This would be a very big jersey on Boz.
On his knees,
that
be 90.
That would be pretty cool.
Very large.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would still be if I had to like draw the line now. I would still defend. I think I could just as easily
yes.
in totality be like, yeah,
because a lot of our beef is with like the media department
visual
and
elements,
the like executives.
Yeah, and even those things have more than likely answers. It's just like, hey, this is a small company. Like we're doing the best we can with what we got. And you got 17 events happening over 3 weekends in 4 different parts of the globe. Like, yeah, it's a big ask. So you're doing great, but could do better. Good, not better. Herb Brooks, Hunter Wood, Michael Scott.
What the fuck? He's having a stroke.
I don't know what just happened. Did we do it?
I think we did. It's the end of the podcast.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast, and thank you to our show sponsors. It is starting to get muggy as fuck up here in Maine, and you got to start the day with a scoop of proper hydrate. And then if you sweat for an hour, guess what? Do another scoop with 16 ounces of water every time you do that. If you do that, you'll be great. Properfuel.co. Use the code word Misfit to save. Sharpentheaxeco.com. We got a lot of good stuff from the Semifinals collection. Make sure you go there. Obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, there's a pretty good chance you know who qualified for the CrossFit Games from the Misfit community. Make sure you use their athlete code to help support their journey to the CrossFit Games. And last but not least, MisfitAthletics.com for your individual programming needs, TeamMisfit.com for your affiliate programming needs. We'll see you next week.